What's up, guys? I'm at the UPS store, starting the daily vlog off with a little errand running. I am shipping some Super Nintendo classics. A couple of buddies of mine online wanted them, and I just happened to see two at a store, so I'm just sending them to them as a charitable deed. After this, I'm probably going to head back home, but when I do, I have some news for you guys, and it's actually okay news after a day that started out pretty shitty. So I will catch you guys in a bit. What's up, guys? I know I said I was going to tell you guys something a little earlier about some stuff that happened today, but I'm actually going to leave that for tomorrow. Because all that stuff is actually happening tomorrow. It'll make much for a better story, and I don't really have too much time to explain everything. So instead, I'm going to do something I've been meaning to do for about a week and a half now, and do my book review. This is the Runelords first book by David Farland, and it is fucking awesome. So I said like way long ago that I wanted to get into some of my basically some of my roots with fantasy novels. So I cut my teeth on my first fantasy novel that I really got into and really read was The Diamond Throne by David Eddings. My granddad actually had a copy of it, and it's maybe a first edition hardback. I've never seen any of the other covers like it. And so I read it, just devoured it while I was in middle school. And from there, I started checking out books from the public library. I got into R.A. Salvatore and Dritz Duerden. I got into Terry Brooks and the Shannara Chronicles. Read the rest of the Ilium and the Tumulia, and as well as the Belgariad and the Malorian by David Eddings. I read a little bit of Raymond E. Feist and his Rift War Saga stuff. I may be going back through that now because I just heard that he finished. But yeah, all very sort of early mid-80s authors that had sort of gone through their entire career. Haven't really branched out too much further than that. There's a couple of things that I've read. C.S. Friedman, I've read a book or two. I've read a book series called Doreni Rising, which was really good. I got into the Dragonlance series, so Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman stuff, but I also branched out into some of the older books that weren't written by them, so like the Friendship, or I think it's the Friendship Sextet, or the Friends Sextet is very good. I read some other Forgotten Realms stuff, Ed Greenwood, Douglas Niles, and then the big one, huge one, Robert Jordan. I've tried to start 2 or 3 times and haven't managed to finish the Wheel of Time series, so that might be on my list too. But enough about the past. My buddy gave me the first 5 books in this series, and I just started reading it. I wasn't reading a book at the time, so I picked it up, and one of the things that I really like about this is it's over 600 pages, pretty thick book, and it happens in the course of about 2 weeks, if not shorter. I think actually it happens in the course of about 5 days, and then like the epilogue skips a week. It's phenomenally well paced to the point where it's not Robert Jordan, where he's describing every single petal and the dew on each petal and how the sun refracts off of that dew and created a rainbow, and then that rainbow, and then so like just so much detail where you're literally just like skipping pages trying to get through that shit. But it goes into just the detail of the everyday life of these characters, and it does a very good job of immediately getting you to understand both the situation that the characters are in and how they are in that situation separately and eventually in tandem. And it also really gives you a lot of good character development. The character arcs through this book are extraordinarily well written. 2 main characters, Gaborn and Iomi, their character development throughout the story as a whole is very good. But the thing that really got me about this book is the central conceit of what a Runelord is. So in these books, a Runelord is basically a king, a person of high and noble birth, who takes runes from people. And what that means is basically people can give up their wit, their stamina, their brawn, their grace, their beauty. And basically they use these things called forcibles, and they chant a spell and they suck that out of that person and put it into another person. So you could suck someone's sight, put it into another person. Person A is blind. Person B can now see as well as two people. Now, an interesting thing happens. This person A, becomes what's called in the universe a dedicate. And if this dedicate dies, then this person loses that rune. If person B, the Runelord, dies, then the dedicate gets back their sight. So it creates this interesting world and this interesting concept of these people are willing to sacrifice certain attributes of themselves, like basically for their king, for the greater good. And when you're attacking another, like if you're in battle and you're attacking another Runelord, you could kill their dedicates and thus weaken the Runelord. Similarly, someone could live in total muscular atrophy for 10 years. The Runelord dies, and suddenly they have all of their brawn back. And so it just creates an interesting dynamic between the powerful people and the common people that you don't see a lot of in a lot of fantasy books. Normally, like the common folk of the stories are usually used as cannon fodder. They're used as an emotional way to appeal to the reader by like needlessly slaughtering them. Or they're just kind of glanced over. They're used if someone's in a town, or they're used as a byproduct of just being in the background. But here you can actually see where a lot of the interconnectedness of the world sort of builds upon itself. And it's so well written in terms of you really get the emotion of things. Spoiler alert. Let me fucking spoiler alert. There's a scene where a character has to go into a dedicate keep of another Runelord, and he just fucking slaughters like 200 people. And I'm talking, these are just men, women, children, obviously all disabled because they're all dedicates. And like that shit to me was more impactful and more like, holy shit, what the fuck, than anything that's happened in like Game of Thrones ever, right? It's like spoiler alert for Game of Thrones. The Reigns of Castamere episode, the Red Wedding, where Robb dies, right? It's like, oh man, they got betrayed. But at that point is right around the point of where you kind of realize that George R. R. Martin just writes bad guys to win, like 95% of the time. So, and especially in the show, having it being called the Red Wedding, right? It's like that's the only wedding that's happening that episode. So you're like, oh shit, of course, right? But the way that this particular scene in this book happens is like you feel for the person having to do it because he was commanded by his king to undertake this task, basically to weaken the big bad threat in the book. And being unflinchingly loyal and knowing that he can potentially save hundreds of thousands of lives, he takes the lives of 200 people to cripple this person. And so it's crazy. It's very, very well done. And even then it gets even more in depth where you can have someone who is, you can have like an intermediary, so you can have a dedicate, you can have like 15 dedicates into this one person, and then this one person's called a vector and it sends to another person. So then you can have like 10 vectors and like 15 dedicates, right? So then you just carry around your vectors, and if one of your vectors dies, then you like still have that bridge, I think, from the dedicates. It's just like weaker or something. Basically it's like you don't have to carry around as many people with you. There's just so much that can be done with this series, and I'm really excited to continue reading it. The magic is really well done and really believable. It's very much imbued with like the the earth and the elements, fire, water, earth, you know, and it's very much grounded. You know, it's not shooting fireball. There's a fireball actually, but it's not, you know, like just crazy all over the place shit. The other really cool thing is the concept of what's called days, like Days. And it's someone that follows around Runelords, and they never interfere with the affairs of men. And they learn from the Time Lords, not Doctor Who, just they're called the Time Lords too. And they basically they have another. There's two of them. There's one that follows, and he can see, hear, all amazing, does everything, but he never talks. And then there's another Days, and they've like done this thing where it's like two ways, so they always know what each other are thinking. It's some sort of two-way rune thing. And basically the other Days just sits there and writes, fucking chronicles everything. And then when the Rune Lord dies, the Days go back, they can die or they get assigned to another Rune Lord. But it's like that's how like the whole of human history has all this information in this like secret. It's like they're the watchmen, right? They're the watchers who watch, you know, the Rune Lords do all this crazy shit. And so I'll be interested to see if one of these days finally does sort of like snap and does something against the Daic order. But yeah, it's just there's so many cool little concepts like that in the books. So I just want to talk about it because I really, really like it. And it's you know, I've been so in my like 6 authors for just ever. That's all I ever read. I'm really excited that I broke out, and I'm really excited to read this book. It's very, very good. So I recommend it. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. I had never heard of it even, or this author, so I'm sure you can find it on Amazon probably. But yeah, it's definitely worth a read. Hopefully the rest of the series is just as good. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow.